Welcome back, everybody, to the Drew and Davis show. Specifically, what this is your bonus video related to the questions that we received during the webinar, our 1 minute mobile photography miracles. And what we've done is we've kind of condensed a number of different photographs, a number of different questions. We've condensed those into the topics that we thought would be most pertinent to the whole crowd. We've also added a list of questions that are not part of our webinar yesterday, but were fun ones that we thought we'd share as well. Remember, we do have a whole series of classes coming up, specifically the next one coming up on Lightroom, where we'll go do a deep dive on that, but also a number of these topics we will elaborate on in future classes. So with that, this is where we started off. This is the list of questions that we're going to be working on. So as an example, things like which iPhone is best, which ones we were working on, et cetera, et cetera. That's what we're going to be tackling right here. And again, those ones at the bottom are ones related to not specifically the webinar we did yesterday, but to just general questions in general. The first question was which iPhone is best, and also kind of which phones were we using, which is a really good question because we did mainly focus on new topics. That was the focus of the webinar. So we were focusing on things that have come in with iOS 18, and specifically, some of them were specific to the hardware capabilities of both the iPhone 15 and the iPhone 16. So you're absolutely right. The majority of what we were talking from was related to these last two cameras, 15 and 16. Both Rad and I were teaching with the 16 Pro Max. We like that. The 15 has basically the same kind of features as the 16. It does have a few extra features to it that aren't on the 15 that we can mention briefly. It has the new styles. We didn't really cover it. Neither Rad or I are big fans of the new photographic styles, but we are huge fans of the JPEG XL Lossy, which we're going to talk about in a second. That is only available on the iPhone 16s. So again, if you're looking for that feature, you will not find that except on an iPhone 16. The camera control button that Rad spoke to is obviously a hardware feature on the new 16. Again, not relevant to others, but that action button that Rad also spoke to is a great feature and is on previous iPhones. And I like using that, as we were talking about, for
I
street
believe it's on the
photography.
15 and 16, isn't it? I don't,
Yes, it came
yeah,
in with the 15.
yeah, yeah.
So absolutely. But the camera control is only on the 16. We did also get with the iPhone 16 Pros, both of them, we got the addition of the 48 megapixel ultra wide camera, the 0.5 camera. So that is a new feature. As we mentioned about yesterday, not a dramatic improvement in quality unless you're going to run it through something like a Topaz Photo AI. Having that extra number of pixels when you start off does help with those sorts of things. But if you were just to look at images side by side between, say, the 15 and the 16, not a lot of visible difference, even on that 48 versus 12 megapixel there. And of course, you have subtle things like the battery life. We have a significantly better battery life on the 16. Is that worth the upgrade? Not necessarily. A lot of these things, we don't use the camera control on there. So I think some of the main benefits that I love on the 16 is things like the JPEG XL Lossy. I think is a real big benefit there. So,
Well,
Rad, anything else that
yeah,
you
well,
love about the 16?
we get a lot of questions about, should I upgrade? And, if you're on the 15, the differences are smaller. But if you have a 14 or a 13, it's a huge difference between what you've got with that 14 or 13 phone to the 16. So if you have the opportunity to finagle a way to get that 16, you're going to see a huge difference in what you're able to do with your phone. Um, so
Especially taking advantage of things like that 5x optical zoom. That what's called a tetraprism technology used to create that. That's only in the 15 Pro Max. So again, maybe you can find yourself a 15 Pro Max camera for much cheaper than the 16. You'd have that extra, length of zoom. It is on both of the 16 Pros, whether it's the Pro or the Pro Max. So that's again a reason for it. So however you want to skin that cat. If you have a 14 or before, would we recommend upgrading? I think so. this is one of your main passions in life. If you're like us with mobile photography, why not spend the extra money?
Yeah.
Trade in your old phone, pay the money, get yourself a Christmas present. You will like it.
Hey, life's short.
Okay.
And you know, the nice thing with the 16 and the 16 Pro and the 16 Pro Max, they're virtually the same phone. So if it wasn't always the case. If you got the Pro model and not the Max model in the past, you were getting fewer of the features that we like as photographers. But today, the Pro and the Max are pretty much the same. So, you know, get the one that feels right for you, and you're not going to compromise and lose anything.
Yeah. Specifically, it was that 15 Pro, didn't have the 5X zoom. It only had a 3. You needed the 15 Pro Max to get that. On the 16, either one of the Pro models that has the 3 cameras will give you that extra telephoto range. So great question there. Here I have the same slide. That just reminds us that we're moving on to the next one. We didn't have any screen references for which phone is best. But we do have this topic of JPEG XL lossy. Where is it? Again, that relates to that topic of somebody who may not have had the latest iPhone 16s. And again, as we talked about yesterday, you'll find your JPEG XL lossy only on the iPhone 16s underneath your settings, camera, formats, Pro default. Some people were looking at this and didn't find it. They have an earlier iPhone. That's why it's called and where it's found. There is your JPEG XL lossy. So again, great question. There you go. Next question in terms of the what we've got from the webinar, organizational options in the Photos app. This is something that Drew spoke to yesterday. Where is whatever? One of the main questions was things like the media types. And Rad, you can speak to this
Yeah,
as you did
so
yesterday.
yeah, so somebody I forget who asked the question, but they were saying I couldn't find media types when I'm scrolling down through um, the Photos app. Well, if you go into custom and reorder, that's that item all the way at the bottom of the Photos app. You can select which things are displayed. So I'm guessing that the person who couldn't find media types probably didn't have it checked in here. So if you check it in here, it will then be displayed on the page. You can move it up if it's important to you. You can grab it here and slide it up to another position. So you can arrange those the way you want them. That's probably why it wasn't being seen on the screen in the Photos app.
And we do have a section. We did cover that yesterday in the webinar. So remember, you can go back to the main one and we'll talk more at length on how you customize it. Also, where Rad talked about things like pinning certain things as favorites and other things like that, and changing the sort order. That was one of the main things that we covered yesterday. That is also part of the webinar. Okay, our next topic in here was preserve settings. Great question. We did cover it yesterday. You can go back into it, but I have no problem kind of talking about it again because it is not intuitive. What we're talking about here is here's that section from yesterday. This is where you find it. Settings, camera, jumping over to preserve settings under camera. You're going to scroll down. And what can be confusing is a person had asked, hey, I turned off live photo, but it still is an option inside of my cameras app. And just to reemphasize that fact, just because something is either on or off does not mean that you're turning on or off that feature inside the Photos app. What it means is that it will preserve the last used setting that you had. So you still need to, with live photos, to make sure that it doesn't automatically reset. The default setting is if this isn't turned on, it will automatically turn on no matter what you do. Every time you open your camera, it will be set to live photo. That's the maddening part. So by turning on this feature down here, you're telling it, I want you to preserve the last used setting. So once you turn it off, close your Photos app, open it up again, or your camera app specifically, camera, open it up again, you will notice that it is still off. It stayed. It preserved that setting between shoots. And the same thing with your portrait zoom and other things we talked about. So again, that's a section in yesterday's webinar. You can go into that section related to preserve settings. Don't mind it, but remember, even though it seems like you're turning it on and it would make sense to turn it off because you don't like it automatically popping up, you really, on these preserved settings, want to figure out whether you want to, whether it's appropriate to keep it sticky, as they call it, between uses inside the camera. So again, great question there. Next, we have AI apps like Topaz Photo AI. I mentioned that briefly. It's a wonderful, wonderful app. It's a desktop app. It is not available in any mobile environment, which is a shame. I would love that and would pay gladly for something like Topaz Photo AI or its other app that Topaz has called Gigapixel. So it is not available. And specifically, what we're talking about is this. This is the app available from topazlabs.com. We love it. We use it. You saw what it did with that image in Greece of that little castle with the flag. It is not. What is available in a mobile device? There are a number of mobile apps that do this sort of thing, not as well. There are also what are known as web apps, different websites that do some sorts of scaling and upscaling and tightening up of photos. Those anything that's a web app will be available on any mobile device because you're accessing it through a web browser. So it doesn't matter whether it's desktop or others. But to be honest, some of those do a better or worse job. Some of them are subscription based. Some of them are mainly geared toward upresing things like these AI generated images of cats on the moon smoking a pipe while singing whatever. So I like the one we touched on yesterday, and that's that Remini. It doesn't do a dramatic upscaling. Uh, I mean, again, if you're starting with a very low res, it may go up from 1 megabyte to 10 megabytes, 10 megapixels. So it does a dramatic, but it's not going to take it beyond something like a 9, 10, or 11. And I'm not quite sure how it chooses how far it pushes it. So we'll definitely upres low res files to a much more usable file format. And no matter what, it does a great job of sharpening, especially portraits. So that's what we were talking about. That was the one that we talked about yesterday in terms of a mobile environment. But if you really want the best quality for upscaling and sharpening up images, we both use those Topaz apps like the Photo AI. Any comment about that, Rat?
No, that's the only one that I know of for the phone, for the mobile environment that does up resing. The photo AI for the desktop is awesome, as is Gigapixel, but I don't know of anything else for the phone.
Yeah. Well, there are other ones. There's something called Clip Drop and others that are no longer available. They kind of come and go. The thing I like about Remini is they're very dedicated to it. If you do look at that in the App Store, remember they're going to want to charge you $10 a week to use this app. You really have to go through your options and you're going to find this yearly subscription for Remini Lite. Don't get the Pro version. The Lite has got more than enough features to it. And you're going to look for the yearly subscription that I think takes it down to $79. Very expensive for an app, but again, for the amount of time that I use it, I think it's great. So I actually pay it and have that smile on my face when I do it. But that's up to you and how you prioritize your budget. We like it. It could be that if you don't mind going to the desktop and using Topaz, just go straight there on your mobile work. Hey, transferring images. We had a number of questions related to the transferring of images, whether between your mobile device and your Macintosh desktop, but also your PC desktop. And there are a few different options within this topic. Rad, I'm going to let you start because this is one of your preferred ways of accessing your iPhone images.
Yeah, thanks. So, your Mac desktop computer comes with an app called Image Capture. I think all Macs ship with it. And you can take your phone, plug it into your computer, call up Image Capture, and it will read your phone as if it was a camera card. It'll see all your photos. You can select the ones you want. You can direct them to a device wherever you want to save them, a folder or an external drive or whatever. And it's great. Once they're where you want them, you can then decide whether you want to leave them on your phone or delete them, however you want to do it. And I find it's just very simple. It's been around forever, and it works really well. Um,
Yeah.
so that's what I use most of the time.
Yeah. And it's very simple. There are other dedicated apps that are available to access that information. Like there's one called iMazing, the letter I, Amazing, is one that I use, but a lot more complicated, but it has a lot more features. I will mention a little thing about this, and we'll touch on it in my next solution for transferring images. Having a USB-C based iPhone as opposed to the Lightning cable that has been around for a million years. The USB-C cable came in with the iPhone 15. That by itself is going to make your Macintosh act much more like a hard drive on a regular basis. So another reason, going back to our topic, should you upgrade or not? That USB-C makes your transfer rates dramatically faster, and it just gives you access to a lot more devices rather than relying on the Lightning. So again, keep that in your equation. Hey, I've got a 14 over 4. Do I need to upgrade? You're going to love having the USB-C as the way that you interface with your device. And speaking of, one of the things that I like doing is being able to plug a hard drive directly into the iPhone, without having a desktop being part of the equation. Whenever you do plug a hard drive into your iPhone via USB-C cable, you will find the Files app. All of you have the Files app, just like you have image capture on your desktop. In a mobile environment, you will find the Files app. You have it. You may have never used it. You should. It's awesome. It's fantastic. When you click on it and you have plugged in a hard drive onto your iPhone, you will find this interface. And specifically, not only will you have access to your entire iCloud drive and things on your phone and downloads, and et cetera, but you'll see this hard drive icon. I have two hard drives connected to my iPhone right now. Yeah, that's a good trick. How do you have two when you only have one USB-C port? I'll explain that to you in a second. But the benefit is that by plugging in the hard drive, when you are in your Photos app and you select a bunch of images, you can select those. And in that share icon, you will find an option for save to files. When you save to files, it'll go directly to your external hard drive. So the Files app is something you want to get used to. You'll notice a lot of times save to files. You've probably already noticed it. It's a number of apps. What does that mean? It means this. It saves it to files. You can put an external hard drive hooked up. One of my favorites that I like is this thing right here. This is from Anchor. You can just plug this into your the type here to in Amazon. It's called the Anchor Mag Pro USB-C adapter SD card reader. And as you can see in this picture, on the inside, it actually has two different slots, a micro SD and a regular SD. And you can see here's mine right here. You just take off and I've got two 1 terabyte SD cards in there. So this is a 2 terabyte hard drive right here. And it's magnetic, as you can see here. It just sticks to the back of your phone. It automatically has the built-in USB-C cable. It's quick, it's easy, it's non-fattening. Why would you not take advantage of this? The other thing that you could do is use something like a Samsung drive. You probably have these small SSD dedicated drives. Either one of these plug directly into your iPhone. You can copy as many images as you want. Again, you'll go into your Photos app, select Arrange, use that share icon and say Save to Files. You can even create new folders and customize it and do all sorts of things. It's a fantastic feature. I love this Anchor one right here. Take advantage of that if you would like, or any hard drive. I like those small SSDs, and that is great question and great reminder of what to do. Transferring images was that one. Duplicating images, either for a safety net. We did talk about this yesterday in the webinar, but I don't mind doing it again. You may want to duplicate an image either because you're wanting to do multiple versions. That's how we talked about it yesterday when we were talking about copy and paste edits. That's where you're going to find it in yesterday's class. This was the image we were talking about there. The upper right-hand corner of your Photos app is where you're going to find that ellipse. So any photograph that you had, you simply go up there and you're going to find duplicate. It'll automatically make a duplicate of the image. You're also going to find, if you haven't used those ellipses, they're great. You can find things, show in all photos, wherever it is, add to a specific album, copy. That's where we found the copy and paste edits. So do take advantage of that little ellipse in the Photos app. I think it is great. Another little reminder on that, you don't need to duplicate images. If you're just doing an edit like here, you can do whatever you'd like in the Photos app. Remember, that's non-destructive. You can go back in a month and change those settings any way you want. And if you do open it and you've done an edit, you'll always have a big revert option available in your Photos app. So you don't have to duplicate images when you're working with an app that is non-destructive like this or something that's inside of Lightroom. You can obviously go back inside of Lightroom as well. But if you want to duplicate, it's there. Another little tip about that. If your images are in a folder, you've already organized your images into a folder and you duplicate, that duplicate will be right next to the original file, which is great. I like that. If you're in the larger Photos app, the whole library, and you duplicate something that you took, 10 months ago, you duplicate it, it won't be next to that image. It will become the last image in the entire Photos library. So if you're in a folder, you duplicate it, it'll show up, you can find it there. It'll also be the last image inside your Photos library. But inside a folder, it says, oh, you probably want to keep these things together. So it automatically does that for you. If you're in the main library Photos portion of the Photos app and you duplicate an image, that duplicate will always be at the very bottom of the stack. That's where you can find it. I actually use it a lot of the times when I'm teaching because I want to make sure, even though it's way up in a particular area in my camera roll that has 100,000 photos in it, I know I need to access it quickly. So I'll duplicate it. It'll be the last thing in my Photos app. I can get to it easily. And there you go. So there's another. And as they say, there you go. Bob's your uncle. Get on with it. Duplicating images, extensions in the Photos editor, and how you can extend the applications that are available inside your Photos app. This is something that Rad spoke to. I'm going to have him start off with a reminder of what he was talking about yesterday. Take it away, Rad.
So here we are, Jack's slide here. We're in the photo editor from the camera roll, and we did this yesterday where we went out and we accessed touch retouch to do removals. So if you go up to the ellipsis up at the top that the arrow is pointing to, click on that, and it takes you to this other panel, and you're going to choose extensions. Click on that, and you see all of the apps that are available in a row there. If you don't see the one you want, you're going to click on more. And when you click on that, it takes you into a panel. You can edit this panel. And if you don't see the app you want, it's not available to be added. So the programmers have to set these things up so that they are compatible with this particular feature. And if they haven't done that, the app won't work. So if it's not there for you to select, it's not ready for prime time. So this feature also applies in the share icon, where you can also access it there.
It's similar to it, not quite the same as you'll see, but it is a great thing that on the iPhone, you do have access right within your Photos app to go directly to, in this case, as Rad just said, Touch Retouch. It's one of the ones we use. Gives you a great alternative to the cleanup tool inside of the Photos app. The other feature that Rad was just mentioning is, in a sense, finding other apps directly, not inside the editor as an extension, but in the Photos app, there is the share, which is something we've used for a million years. That is where you find, by clicking on this, with any photograph that you have visible in the Photos app. This is where you find all your features like copy it or send it in messages. You're going to start to find things like Snapseed. You may not have noticed that that was there. Again, Snapseed is one of our favorite apps. It's wonderful to have that available. I've got that image right there, that infrared. I want to go right into Snapseed. I don't have to launch the app. I don't have to dig through my sock drawer to find it. If I'm looking at it, the great thing about this feature is I'm looking at it in full size. I can say I may have 50 images that are like each other. Which one do I want to edit? If you go into Snapseed and then say open, you're digging through little teeny tiny, icons. It's almost impossible to figure out, was it this one? Was it this one? So this is a huge boost for me in any app that you're looking at it full size. You know exactly the image you want, and you go directly to that app, as opposed to, as I call it, digging through your sock drawer to find out which app did I want to work on. So I love it. But right now, where this little area is, if you slide over to the right, you will also find more, just like we found in the extensions that Rad just mentioned. When you click on more in this area, now you've got a zillion apps at your disposal, not all of them. And if you don't see them after you click on edit, you can't add them there. but you do have a lot more, as you can see, options. If you do click on edit in the upper right, you can turn on and off. As you scroll down, anything that is not visible, you can find. So every single app will be part of this list. And you'll notice these things, you may have noticed, these are meant to be little textured grip handles so you can change the order. So as you can see, I've moved Snapseed, Remini, Lightroom, FaceApp, all these things. They're more important to me than even my mail and my notes, but you organize it any way you want. But that's why Snapseed is right there. Whenever I want to edit, it is right there because I clicked and dragged the sort order. As again, we demonstrate that a little bit yesterday in some other apps. So that is the ability under the share option within the Photos app to instantly go to other applications, again, like Snapseed. Great feature, similar to the extensions that we talked about yesterday. iPhone versus iPad Photos app. That was another great question. So this is where we're at right now, iPhone versus iPad app. Seems to me like the iPad looks different. And you are absolutely right. This is the Photos app on a current iPad. Does have the same features. We've got our pinned collections. And if we scroll up to the top, like Rad showed you yesterday, you will find the option to change sort order, but you don't have the same customize. If you hit edit here, you'll notice there's no customized order at the bottom like we saw on the iPhone. You can't quite customize it in the same way that you can the iPhone. I'm sure that will change in a future update for the iPad OS, but you do have things like your pinned collections. You can do those the same way as Rad showed yesterday. Press and hold on any, say, folder as an example, and you can add it as a pin. You can modify again, make which one's most important and change their order. But it is different. Don't freak out. It's not you. It's not you, baby. It's me. That is what we are talking about when we see the difference between an iPhone and an iPad Photos app. Okay. I use it all the time. A lot of you do, where you shoot on the iPhone and edit on the iPad. I think it's a great workflow. The features are there, but it is different. So don't get too disoriented by that. Mobile apps on the desktop. Again, don't we wish that all these phenomenal apps were available in both locations? But I'm afraid they're not. These are some of the apps that I taught at the tail end of our webinar yesterday, things like Remini, Face App, Artist, Gahaku, ton of ones that I'm sure you absolutely adore like I do. Are they available on a desktop environment? No, I'm afraid the vast majority of mobile apps are not. The app manufacturer has not spent the time to recode the app to work on a desktop. But some companies have. Rad, you use a set of apps that are available on both. They're from a company.
Yeah, they're called Jixie Picks. You guys are familiar with some of them, like Dramatic Black and White, Vintage Scene. They've been around forever, but they're wonderful apps. And many of those, they work both on iPhone and Android, and many of them are also available for desktop use as well. And so there's quite a variety of different ones.
Yeah, and again, that's great. That company Jixie Picks, Jixpix, I believe.
Yep,
Jixie
that's it.
Picks. You'll find it in the App Store on your Macintosh. Go to your App Store in the lower left-hand corner, and you will find them in the Macintosh App Store. And like you said, it's available on Windows as well. A lot of them.
And for the
But
desktop, if you can Google right from your desktop computer too, and it will bring up the desktop apps if you for installing on your computer.
yeah, great reminder. But we want Face App. I want Face App. I can't find it there. Rat dang it all. Is there a workaround for that? And fortunately, there is. It's a brand new feature. Came in with a Mac. This is a Mac feature, not a PC feature. A Mac feature in Sequoia 15, the latest one. They have added a brand new feature, and it's a fairly elaborate feature and brand new. We didn't cover it yesterday. We will cover it more in future ones, but it is called iPhone mirroring. And it's not just mirroring the screen of your iPhone to your desktop computer. It's actually allowing you complete control of your iPhone via your desktop. So your desktop mouse, your keyboard, your trackpad, everything that you can do to the iPhone, you're actually accessing from your desktop computer. It is a fantastic new feature. It is awesome. Again, if you want to find out more about it, you can either YouTube or Google for iPhone mirroring and more to use it until we speak about it in future classes. It is great. If you specifically search for this word, this phrase, use your iPhone from your Mac with iPhone mirroring and notifications, that you will bring you directly to this page on Apple support, and you can find out more. This is, again, for those of us who love using our mobile apps, but would wishes desperately that we could access them on the desktop, this is now to do it. There's quite a bit involved. That's, again, why we didn't cover it yesterday, because it's so elaborate. And it was triggered when that person asked that great question about what is available on the desktop that we were covering in mobile. The vast majority, not, of course, Lightroom would be and things like that. The anything that's a web app like the Adobe Firefly that we covered yesterday, I'm afraid most of them are not. And that brings us to, so these last few little tips that we're doing just for fun. They weren't part of the topics that we were covering yesterday, but we thought we would just spend a second on them. One of the questions was, what are our favorite infrared filters for using? Both Brad and I love infrared, both on our dedicated DSLRs as well as on our iPhones now. Rad heads up an entire Facebook group associated with mobile photography infrared. What's the specific name of that group,
It's called
Rad?
Open Group iPhone Infrared. That's
iPhone
it.
infrared, and you'll see that little title. It has
We'll
myself,
include a
Brad.
link in the supplemental materials that we send out. Welcome you to join us. I think we've got about 1,500 people now everybody is trying with different systems, different filters, and we ask that they post what their camera was, what they did, what their technique was, what filter they're using, and it's just a place to see what others are doing and be inspired and to learn from each other. So it's a really good resource, I think, and we've been doing this since the iPhone 11 or so is when I started. I don't know when you started, Jack, probably before that, but it's these filters, we've tried lots of different ones. And the 720 and the 760 are probably the two that I like the most. There's some differences in these, and Jack's brought up some slides that he shot. He's out in palm tree land, so I'm here in deciduous forest, Indiana. So it's a little different, but this is the 720 nanometer. Uh,
720, we've been using this, which works great on a DSLR, converted DSLR, and that's where this issue comes in and why we do entire classes on it. We have an entire class coming up on black and white and infrared, not just infrared, but black and white as well, because the iPhone does not, you cannot convert an iPhone for infrared. It is, you're having to shoot through different things, something that's known as a hot mirror that blocks out infrared. So this is what you get when you shoot with that 720. Like I said, that's been our standard infrared filter on mobile, on all cameras for a long time. When you convert that into black and white, you get the distinction between the foliage and the sky, but it's not quite as dramatic. And a lot of times what Rad and I have been doing is showing you how to edit the photo to get it back to looking more dramatic like a traditional infrared. The thought was, what about changing the nanometer, the wavelength that these filters allow the cameras to be sensitive to? So the experimentation went from the 720 we've been using to a 760. And the 760, this is the shot directly out of it, same time, same camera. And you can see that distinction between sky, water would be the same, sky, water, and foliage is significantly different. And when you convert that into black and white, now you start to getting more of that drama that you traditionally associate with a standard infrared setup. So to answer your question, 720 is a great one. We still use it. It's been around forever. My new favorite is the 760. I absolutely love it. Again, we've got a whole class coming up on black and white and infrared. But if you do not have a 760, I would certainly add that to your your range of infrared filters that you use on whatever camera that you want.
When the person who asked this question also asked about an 830, and the 830, the challenge. I haven't tried the 830 on my phone, but I have had a Fuji converted to 830 nanometer, and because it's a darker filter, you have to have a slower shutter speed. So I can't hand hold my Fuji shots as much with that 830. And so because light is so important to infrared photography, particularly with the iPhone, the 830, even though I haven't used it, I'm going to predict that it's probably not going to be a very effective filter for iPhone photography.
Yeah, I would probably say the same. Your image is going to be, it may have more contrast, but it will have more noise. It will have less detail. You're shooting through really a pitch black piece of glass. So, again, I think your 760 gives you the benefit of both worlds. Great question there. Next, Average Cam Pro. This is something that Rad uses. It was a great question.
Yeah,
Rad, take it away on that one.
Yeah, so somebody asked if they were hesitant to upgrade to 18.2 because they didn't want to have it torpedo Average Cam Pro. And they wanted to know if Average Cam Pro still works with 18.2. And I can reassure you that it does. It's a miracle that it does. This app is like 12 years old. It hasn't been updated in I think 5 years. And the fact that it works at all after all these iOS updates is a miracle to me. But it's a unique app. It's an in-camera multiple exposure camera. It's very archaic. Some of the features of it don't even work anymore, but what it does really well. You can take between 1 and 124 or 6, I think, photographs with every shutter press, and it puts them all together, combines them in the camera. So you can create images like this. So this is 16 exposures. I moved the camera slightly, just took the camera and moved it slightly up while it was firing those 16 shots. It's wonderful. I love the textures that come out of it and everything. So I share your, whoever asked that question, I fear that with every iOS update that this favorite app is going to be gone. But rest
You
assured,
knocked off your microphone, Rad.
oh, sorry. Am I back?
Yeah.
Yeah. So anyway,
So again,
it's still working.
yeah. And Rad again covered multiple different apps that are current, things like Reheld and other ones that will do a more standard long exposure. This creates some beautiful, expressive images. And last but not least, how did we make our slides? All these slides, I've been working in Photoshop since Photoshop was called, oh my gosh, skipping it, Barney Scan XP. Photoshop started life by the Knoll brothers called Barney Scan XP. I've been using it since it was pre-Photoshop. So I feel very comfortable in Photoshop. I did all these in Photoshop. But we also both use our beloved Snapseed for adding type to any image very quickly and easily. It's a great feature. This is the tool set inside of Snapseed. Again, we have an entire class on Snapseed coming up, which will be a fantastic class. This is a phenomenal piece of software. Again, originally designed by Nick Software, bought by Google. It's now free. But that text app at the bottom allows you to add type. In this case, Rad started making slides for our presentation, but I use it for things like making a quick little Christmas card or birthday card. Open up your photograph, click on type at the bottom. You have a bunch of styles. It's a wonderful, quick, easy way to add type to an image. In our presentation, we use Photoshop, but we both use this one. There's a ton of apps that allow you to add type, but we know that you have Snapseed, so that may be where you want to
Well,
start.
and for this one on that slide that I made with if you go back one, Jack, all I did was I set my camera down and I took a photograph of nothing, black. And then I moved that photograph into Snapseed. So I had a black background and then I just started popping my text in. So it's a it's easy, it works well, and you can produce all kinds of things like that if you want to do a presentation on you know on your camera, on your phone.
Absolutely. Another great way to make black backgrounds, use the curves option. Remember, you got curves inside of Snapseed. You can turn
Oh
anything
yeah,
into pure black or pure white. So
duh.
great ways to skin multiple things. That brings us to our blatant advertisement for our next class coming up right around the corner, January 2nd. You have links for registration. When you get this video, this Q&A video, you obviously will have the webinar video. You will also have our support document, which will have a bunch of links on it. One of them is this ability to register for our upcoming class. We'll be covering Lightroom Mobile, not only, as you can see here, enhanced quality, creativity, but desktop integration. So if you're a Lightroom Classic user or even a Photoshop user, the new Photoshop allows you to access the cloud-based images that are part of Lightroom Mobile. So all sorts of things we can do, all the new features. We both love it. We live in it. It has by far the best masking capabilities of any application out there. And we hope that you can make it. We're very, very, very excited about this upcoming presentation. Okay, anything else you want to say to the gang before we sign off and let them get back to life?
Just thanks for being with us for this, and we had a lot of great questions. I hope we've been able to add a little extra value with this kind of bonus Q&A video, and I just grateful for everybody's participation, and I wish everyone a happy holiday.
Absolutely. Happy holidays, everybody. We will see you on the 2nd. And thanks again for joining us, as I said. Bye bye.
So long.